A huge thank you to patron Brandy Lovato for suggesting today's video topic. If you want to suggest a topic for next Wednesday's Name Explain video, all you have to do is support Name Explain on Patreon for $1 a month. Find out more by visiting patreon.com/NameExplain, which will be linked down below. Anyway, there's this strange thing in English where we use the names of birds as slang terms for various parts of the human body, but not the family-friendly parts of the body like the eyes, elbows or knees. We instead like to apply avian-based nomenclature to parts of our body that have been deemed inappropriate by polite society. It's probably because these body parts have been deemed taboo as to why they got these nicknames in the first place. I'm sure you know the parts of the body I'm talking about. The areas between your legs or on your chest. For so long, we've shunned these parts of the body, kept them wrapped up and reserved viewing of them for only those we care for. This shunning of these anatomical areas even extends into language. We have all kinds of terms for these bits of our body. Some range from fairly innocent so we can talk about them without seeming rude, and some of them are incredibly vulgar. Think of the terms you'd hear teenagers using. The reason we have these terms, especially the more polite ones, is so we can chat about these areas without breaking the unwritten social rule of not saying their supposedly inappropriate names. Even their correct scientific names are considered rude by many and should only be used in scientific or medical situations. Like YouTube will probably be angry at me for using some of these words, but it's also my birthday around the time of publishing, so I'm feeling silly. If YouTube does decide to demonetize this video, please feel free to leave a super thanks or become a patron as a little birthday treat for me, thanks. But in our quest to speak about the unspeakable, we have looked for alternative words, and for some reason, many of those alternative words are the names of birds. What especially confounding, however, is that when we look into the origins of these bird names and the anatomical slang, we soon start to realize that in many cases, there isn't actually all that much of a link between the two. A good amount of them can be chalked up to an etymological coincidence. Take the group of birds known as tits. This is a collective name for a small section of birds found in parks, forests and gardens. There's birds like the blue tit, the great tit, the coal tit, and so on. Tit as a title for a creature did not start with birds, but instead with horses. Small or poor quality horses were regularly referred to as tits, or tits as it was spelled in the 16th century. As to why it got applied to them, we don't know. But what we know is that tit meaning small got applied to other animals too, and eventually settled as a name for birds. Too many twitches and bird watchers, it's these kinds of birds that will come to mind when they hear the word tit. But to a lot of other people, something else entirely enters their brain instead, as this word is also a popular slang term for a part of the body on the human chest. It's more linked with female anatomy, but in reality, most humans have this area of their body in some form. This area got the word tit, or more commonly its plural form as there tends to be two of them, not from the birds but instead from the Old English tit, which means a nipple or teat. What's interesting too is that seemingly tit, or a variation of it, was being applied to the human anatomy before it was being used for birds or even horses. In the case of this one, the human body name predates the bird name. Tits, however, are not the only bird name we use in relation to the human mammary gland though. Now I finally get to talk about boobies. Man, I love boobies. I think they look amazing, and whenever I know there are some in the area, I will definitely hunt them out. I mean, obviously I'm talking about the birds, right? What did you think I was talking about? Boobies are another group of birds which are found across the globe. The most well known are probably the blue-footed boobies, but we also have red and black-footed ones too. I actually had the chance to see these guys in the wild during my time in the Galapagos, and I can assure you they made me a booby convert. Like with the tits, the birds and the body are unconnected in this case too. Their name derives from a different source entirely. Booby, or just boob, is a term we've used for some time now to refer to a stupid person. It's thought to come from the Spanish bobo, which means a stupid person too. We still hear it said in this way today with terms like booby trap, as in a trap a dumb person would fall for. People even get referred to boob sometimes for doing something stupid. Like imagine a cartoonish villain calling their henchman a boob, and I'm sure it will sound familiar to you. The reason these birds ended up being called boobies is because two explorers of their homelands in the past, they were deemed pretty dumb birds. This is because they would happily land on ships which would make them easy pickings for hungry sailors. The word in relation to the body, meanwhile, has nothing to do with being stupid. It's also a relatively new term too. The OED's earliest reference to the word in relation to the body is from just 1934. That's less than 100 years ago. While booby for the chest might be relatively new, the word it evolved from is much older, with that being the term of bubby. Bubby dates back to the 17th century and comes from older Germanic roots, once again meaning teat. Unfortunately, there is no bird called the bubby, but due to the word evolving from bubby into booby, we now have another situation where a bird and a body part share a name. But then we have the word hooter, which is related to birds and this part of the body, and in this case they are seemingly connected. There's also no one bird or group of birds technically called hooters. It's a term we use for birds that make a hooting sound, in most cases owls. Hooters has become a term for this area of the chest too, but in all honesty I don't think it's a particularly popular one. I've never heard them referred to as hooters personally. It's way more linked to the name of a bar/restaurant chain, which is heavily linked with this area of the body. Hooter has also become a nickname for another part of the body too, one that is far less taboo, that being noses, simply because when we blow our nose, we tend to make something of a hooting sound too. As we venture further south of the body and get to the reproductive zone, we can find a few more slang terms, especially for the anatomically male reproductive organ. Yeah, that's the term we're going with to be as safe as possible. Let's call it the amro for sure. The amro has two notable bird-inspired names, with one of those being one of the most popular terms for it, but the other one is the term of a pecker. Peckers are a kind of bird, more commonly known by their full name of woodpeckers, which do exactly what they sound like. They peck at wood to find their food. As much as I love a booby, I do enjoy a good pecker too. Sometimes when I'm in the park, I like to see if I can get a peek at a pecker or two. Pecker became a term for the amro because they are also known for pecking at things too, albeit not wood all that often. It might also come from the fact that the amro looks a bit like either a woodpecker or just their beak too. Both pecker as slang for the amro and woodpecker for the name of these birds came into being around the same time in the 16th century. And finally we have the cock, or cockerel to give it its full name I suppose. Cock in the world of birds is most linked with male chickens, aka roosters, but in the past it was the go-to word for all male birds, coming from the old French coq before entering English as cock/cockerel. We see cock in other bird names too, like the peacock or cockatoo. The cocker in the dog breed name of Cocker Spaniel comes from their origins of hunting another bird named the woodcock. Cocks and male birds really go hand in hand, but how this name became linked with the amro on the other hand we aren't entirely sure. There is some belief that it actually does relate to the male chicken. One theory is due to the link roosters have with virility in the past across many cultures. Chickens, both male and female, have been linked with life and birth. I imagine it's because their eggs are such a great physical representation of birth, as opposed to the live births of humans and most mammals. As a key job of the amro is to create new life, it is understandable as to why the connotation may have came about. Another idea, however, is that it comes from the older word for the amro of pillycock. From here, it's easy to see how it got shortened to just cock. Birds have done a really good job at integrating themselves into the vocabulary of the human body, especially when it comes to the more taboo parts of the body, though bird names aren't always linked to rude areas. Some bodybuilders refer to their biceps as swans due to the fact they look like a swan's neck, and bird/chick has become a somewhat derogatory term for women as a whole in the English-speaking world. Bird being used to refer to women actually dates all the way back to the 17th century too, though I'm left thinking, what if we extend bird names to beyond these parts of the body? Why don't we call our toes pigeons, or our feet penguins, or even our mouth a pelican? Okay, granted, those are just a few I made up on the spot. Like I said, it's almost my birthday, I like to take a bit of a step back and relax around this time of year. So why don't I pass it to you guys? Think of some bird names that we could apply to parts of the body and why, and let me know about them down in the comments below. Anyway, I'm gonna go have a little hunt around for a pecker or a booby or two. Name Explained depends on viewers like yourself supporting the channel financially on Patreon, so a huge thank you to everyone who does. Donating just $1 a month helps the channel amazingly and gets you bonuses including ad-free videos, exclusive content, the power to request ideas to be made into actual Name Explained videos, and your name at the end of the video with all these awesome people. Visit patreon.com/Name Explained or click the link down below to find out how you too can support the channel. Thank you. Thanks for reaching the end of the video. Why not watch another and subscribe to keep up to date on all things Name Explained. You can find myself on Instagram where I'm Name Explained YT, and join the Facebook group Friends of Name Explained to talk with myself and other name nerds. All that will be linked down below. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and once again, thank you all so much.